to paraphrase Claude Rains, I'm shocked. There's antitrust violations going on in this country. The media have been one of the great exceptions of the enforcement of antitrust and collusion and restraint of trade and all the other laws that were passed in a kind of now an era we're nostalgic for, the Teddy Roosevelt trust-busting era and its legacy. Big media has operated under looser and looser restrictions. In the creative community, the biggest change was the elimination of the financial interest and syndication regulations and laws which governed the television industry until the 1990s. But because the movie studios were so powerful and the television networks were so powerful that that law was repealed. And the consequence of it is that while there was once a thriving industry of independent television producers, today, basically, the number of independent television producers in the business is exactly zero. There is no supply of content to television which comes from sources that the TV studios and networks do not themselves own. They are the arbiters of what gets developed, what gets aired, and what gets ultimately on the air long enough to get syndicated. And so we are in a time now when instead of having a Norman Lear be able to get shows on the air, instead of a Carsey Werner being able to produce shows independently, everything is completely dependent on the network, and creators have fewer and fewer places to go in order to pitch their product. Corporations are out to make profit. And that's true of corporations which have businesses called news, which used to be loss leaders to serve the public interest, but are now profit centers just like anything else. And it's true of corporations that have book divisions and movie divisions and TV networks. They're all in it to make money. And if they were doing so in a free, unfettered, unregulated market where the forces of democracy were able to be at play, which is to say a flourishing collective bargaining, a variety of competing different sources of capital, low barriers of access, few restrictions in terms of distributing product. If we lived in that utopia, I would imagine that we would not have half a dozen corporations controlling the media in this country. I think all of the efforts of lobbying and of legislation and of regulation which have been sponsored by the big corporations over the last 30 years have had one purpose in mind, and that is to enable them to call the shots and not have their hand stayed by something called the public interest. And fortunately for them, they have been able pretty much to work their will. It'd be very hard to point to any development over the past 30 years which served the public interest and forced the studios and the networks to do something which changed their hammerlock on power and control. So is it just capitalism? Well, maybe, but it's also consistent with an outcome which a paranoid would have good reason to suspect.